Then I would do something to her parents. And if I was in jail, I would have my friends.
I'm tired of this shit. Y'all just railroad the shit out of me here.
He recognized me. He looked me right in the eye, and it was terrifying.
Captive in a shipping container for 65 terrifying days. It happened in a courtroom where 32-year-old Kayla Brown came face to face with convicted serial killer Todd Kohlhepp for the first time since his capture.
How long were you held captive?
65 days.
Todd Kohlhepp's horrific series of crimes came to light in 2016 when he was arrested for the kidnapping of Kayla Brown, who had been held captive on his property for months. During his investigation, it was revealed that he was also responsible for multiple murders dating back several years. Kohlhepp confessed to killing several victims, and his demeanor throughout the trial showed no remorse, adding to the chilling nature of his crimes. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The victims' families and the public were left horrified by Kohlhepp's lack of emotion during the trial. He offered no apology for his actions and showed no empathy for the pain he caused. His sentencing to 7 consecutive life terms seemed fitting given the calculated nature of his crimes. For the families of the victims, the case underscored the lasting trauma of his actions and the unrepentant attitude of a serial killer.
Tonight on 7 News, for the first time, we're hearing from the family of one of Todd Kohlhepp's alleged victims. The father of Charles David Carver spoke with our Brianna Smith one-on-one after a hearing for their civil cases. She's joining us now in the studio on that story. Brianna.
Well, Tom, today's hearing removed the accused serial killer's mother as his power of attorney and placed an independent lawyer in charge of his frozen assets.
In a flash, a suspected serial killer was paraded through a courtroom today. Minutes later, a judge deciding that his mother could no longer be in charge of his finances.
That person will be directed to take possession of Mr. Kohlhepp's property.
The reach of loss was evident by the number of victims that filled courtroom seats, one of those being Charles David Carver's father.
It's like a piece of you is gone.
So that I can have an exhibit in my file.
Courtrooms will soon become a normality for those families.
Kohlhepp's case raised public concerns about how such dangerous individuals could go undetected for years. His crimes left a permanent scar on the community, and his reaction to the life sentence was one of complete indifference. This case emphasized the need for thorough investigations and the importance of ensuring that violent criminals who show no remorse are kept away from society forever. In 2015, Michael Webb abducted 14-year-old Ariel Ramirez, holding her captive for several days before she managed to escape. Webb's disturbing actions shocked the public, especially when it was revealed that he had planned the abduction. His trial revealed that he showed no remorse for his crime, and he continued to deny his full responsibility. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Video confession after sentencing.
What did you say to scare her, Michael?
I told her that if she said anything, that I would do something to her parents. And if I was in jail, I would have my friends.
During the trial, Webb's lack of emotional response to the victim's suffering and the distress caused to her family was apparent. His behavior was unnerving, with little acknowledgement of the psychological toll his actions had on the young victim. The victim's family and the community at large were outraged by Webb's indifference to the pain he caused. His sentencing was seen as a necessary step to ensure that he would never harm anyone again.
Evidence at the scene indicated that Felicia's body had been concealed within a suitcase and dragged from the apartment.
A suitcase detectives won't say if they found. The chief says a look-alike of the same brand was seized from 35-year-old Granville Ritchie's car. They say drag marks and a broken wheel were found at Ritchie's apartment, along with physical evidence, soil samples that link his car to Felicia's body.
Cell site data analysis also revealed that Ritchie traveled to the area where Felicia's body was recovered and that he remained there for a prolonged period of time.
Granville Ritchie was convicted of kidnapping and murdering 9-year-old Felicia Williams in Florida in 2014. His actions were brutal, and the victim's body was discovered after an extensive search. Ritchie's behavior during the investigation and trial was marked by his lack of remorse. Even as he was confronted with the pain caused to the victim's family, he showed no signs of regret for his actions. Ultimately, Ritchie was sentenced to death.
This video just coming in out of a Tampa courtroom where Granville Ritchie showed up for a pre-trial hearing. It was a detention hearing this morning. Ritchie is charged with the murder and sexual assault of 9-year-old Felicia Williams in Temple Terrace. In today's hearing, a judge decided Ritchie will stay in jail without bond until his trial.
Throughout the trial, Ritchie continued to deny his involvement in the crime despite the overwhelming evidence against him. His lack of remorse was particularly disturbing, especially given the young age of the victim. The trial brought attention to the emotional devastation of the victim's family, who were forced to endure not only the loss of their loved one, but also the additional trauma of Ritchie's cold demeanor. His death sentence was met with strong support from those who felt it was the only appropriate punishment for such a heinous crime. Ritchie's sentencing sparked strong emotions among the community and the public, many of whom felt justice had been served but still grappled with the depth of the crime. The case also raised questions about the effectiveness of the death penalty, with some questioning whether it truly serves as a deterrent. Nonetheless, Ritchie's fate served as a grim reminder of the horrors of kidnapping and murder.
Do you understand that you are charged with felonies and you're entitled to a preliminary examination if you want one?
Yes.
Do you want a preliminary examination?
No.
And do you understand the charges against you at this time?
Yes.
Have you had enough time to discuss the waiver of preliminary examination with your attorneys?
Yes.
The hearing lasted only minutes, but that was enough for a judge to rule the case will proceed. As deputies led Patterson out, he turned to his family in the front row, nodding, both groups saying, "I love you."
Anything to say about the charges at all?
Outside the courtroom, neither Patterson's family or attorneys would comment.
Jake Patterson's kidnapping of 13-year-old Jamie Kloss in 2018 and the subsequent murder of her parents left the nation stunned. Patterson held Jamie captive for 88 days in his remote home before she escaped. The community was horrified not only by the brutality of the crime, but also by Patterson's strange motives, which were revealed during his trial. Patterson showed little remorse during the trial, offering brief statements and a few words, but no real expression of regret for his actions. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without parole.
Much as I could, so I wouldn't do this.
The sentencing hearing for 21-year-old Jake Patterson opened with powerful statements from the siblings of James and Denise Kloss. They were murdered when Patterson kidnapped their 13-year-old daughter, Jamie.
Knowing what my sister went through the last minutes of her life, trying to protect Jamie, this doesn't leave my mind.
For the first time, we hear the bone-chilling 911 call from Denise Kloss during Patterson's break-in.
Patterson's behavior in court shocked the public. He did not display the remorse or regret one might expect from someone who had committed such a heinous crime. His indifference to the suffering he caused Jamie and her family was deeply unsettling to the community. Jamie's courage in escaping was met with overwhelming support, and Patterson's trial only added to the trauma the family had to endure. The reaction to Patterson's life sentence was one of mixed relief and outrage. While many felt justice had been served, the coldness of Patterson's behavior left many questioning his humanity. The case raised concerns about how to prevent similar kidnappings and the psychological toll they take on the victims and their families. Patterson's case served as a reminder of the horrors that can lurk behind closed doors and the resilience of those who survive such ordeals.
Ms. Keck and I are, December 14th will be fine for Ms. Keck.
Your Honor, I object to a continuance that far off. As I said, I did not get the order last time I was here in court. It was not mailed to me. It was not given to me upon leaving the courtroom. I've had motions in since that time and after. I have motions filed from October 20th, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 motions from October 20th and 2 as of right now from November 16th. The motions from October 20th were filed before that last court date, whereas I was told that we would come and do the motion, have the motion hearing today on the 30th. I actually sit right back there in the first pew and agreed to the hearing with Mr. Jones when he came and presented the order to me. He said, you obviously have no objection to that. I said, well, it's not as if I can object when I'm on the record.
Bradley Yawn's kidnapping of a woman and her 2 children in 2014 resulted in a tense standoff with law enforcement. Yawn held the family captive for several days before they managed to escape. Throughout his trial, Yawn showed little remorse, often challenging the evidence and denying responsibility. His erratic behavior during the trial left the jury and the public deeply unsettled. Ultimately, Yawn was sentenced to life in prison without parole.
And I was told that the hearings would be today. That's why I'm here prepared with all these motions.
Mr. Young, reading from the order that I signed on October 26th of 2022, the final sentence says defendant's remaining motions will be continued for selection of a hearing date to November 30th of 2022, and that's exactly what we're doing today. Second point, you filed motions that the clerk have file stamped of November 28th. Motion in limine, motion for disclosure and discovery, and motion for disclosure from the courts. The state has the right to receive those motions in time to prepare to respond to those. So thinking that's going to happen overnight is not realistic thinking. So we're going to set all motions that are pending as of today's date for December 14th at 2 o'clock. So we'll have you back here to argue those motions at that time.
Your Honor, may I ask why there's not a stenographer here in the courtroom today?
The stenographer is appearing by Zoom and is taking the recording down as authorized by Illinois Supreme Court rule.
Is there a reason for that?
It's just the way it's happening today.
It's natural that the stenographer is usually in the courtroom, right?
Mr. Young, I've answered your question. There is a stenographer taking the proceedings down via Zoom.
I also would like to object to the media being in the courtroom. I've not been given notice of that 14 days prior, and I've not been given notice today. So I'd like to object to that, and this being filed under coverage of the news this afternoon, as it always is. Also, Your Honor, I would...
Your objection's noted for the record and overruled. I have nothing else to take up in your cases today, Mr. Yon, so I'm going to remand you to tested sheriff.
Your Honor, I am my own attorney. I have some issues to take up with the court.
If you file a written motion, notify the state of those issues, and then we can schedule those for a hearing.
It seems like things don't get filed.
Jan's trial was marked by his aggressive attitude and refusal to accept accountability for the trauma he caused the victims. His lack of empathy was evident as he continued to deny his involvement, making the case all the more chilling. The victim's family was left emotionally drained. not only by the kidnapping itself but by Jan's refusal to show remorse for his actions. The life sentence was seen by many as necessary, given his violent tendencies.
Your Honor, the clerk just did not file him. That's one of my reasons. Maybe off you, dude.
Mr. Jan, you're remanded into the custody of the sheriff.
The clerk will start filing my stuff. And the clerk will never file my stuff. That's why I'm sitting here trying to argue. Piece of shit.
Let's go.
No, he's done. I'm tired of this shit. Y'all just railroad the shit out of me here. Fucking.
The reaction to Jan's sentence was one of mixed emotions, as some felt justice had been served, while others were disturbed by his lack of regret. His case reinforced the ongoing challenges that law enforcement and the legal system face when dealing with individuals who display no empathy or remorse. The case underscored the importance of protecting potential victims from such violent offenders.
Arden Summers had not seen her dad in 5 years until she stepped into a Tampa courtroom.
And as soon as I walked into the courtroom, he recognized me. He looked me right in the eye, and it was terrifying.
The Trevor Summers case centers on the violent kidnapping and assault of Elisa Mathewson by her estranged husband in March 2017. After their 16-year marriage ended amid domestic strife and financial issues, Elisa obtained a restraining order against Trevor. Ignoring the court's orders, Trevor coerced their 14-year-old daughter into leaving a window open so he could break into Elisa's home. He physically assaulted Elisa, tied her up, and forced her into a car, driving her around rural Florida while subjecting her to repeated abuse.
He wants to get rid of me, and if it takes representing himself.
During the ordeal, Elisa managed to escape briefly in a Walgreens parking lot, but Trevor recaptured her and inflicted further harm, including slashing her wrist. Police ultimately intercepted the vehicle after a multi-county search, rescuing Elisa while Trevor attempted to strangle her and harm himself. Evidence revealed a suicide note Trevor had written to their children. He was arrested and charged with multiple crimes, including kidnapping, sexual battery, and attempted murder.
I thought could do no wrong, and just to know that he used me to do what he wanted to do hurts more than anything.
In 2022, Trevor represented himself during his trial, which drew significant attention due to his cross-examination of Elisa and their children. Despite his claims that their interactions were consensual, a jury found him guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison and is currently incarcerated at the Okeechobee Correctional Institution in Florida.